I'm gonna make some placemats. So a few months ago, I made placemats with a table runner for our dining room table, and they just feel very wintry, and I would like to update them and make placemats that have a more spring feel. Hopefully spring is coming around the corner. I'm here for it. I'm ready. So I want to cheer spring on with some new placemats and a new table runner. So for this, we're gonna travel to Joann Fabrics. So we're gonna need, I want them to be reversible. So I'm gonna need 2 cotton fabrics. I'll probably look at the quilting cotton section to get some fabric with some nice patterns. And then I'm gonna look for a very thin batting. So the placemats have a little squish to them to protect the table from the silverware and the plates and the bowls. So let's head to Joann.
It's a beautiful day for Joann Fabrics. I think I'm gonna look in their quilting cotton fabric because that's where there's like a lot of patterns. It will be really nice to sew with. And I'm gonna look for batting to put in the middle to make it squishy. And maybe some matching or different colored thread to make a contrast. No, I'm not gonna do that. So I'm gonna check, see if there's any coupons so I can save some money, and let's check it out.
But before I check out the fabrics, I had to stop and look at all these gnomes, and I'll definitely be back to pick a friend for my current gnome. Once I got into the fabric section, I was very overwhelmed with all the patterns and the color choices, and I wanted to make sure I picked something that made sense in our space and wouldn't be too overwhelming as a pattern, something that was too busy. So this green fabric caught my eye, and I didn't end up picking it, and I'll tell you why later. I really liked this as a nature plant option, so I put that in my cart. And for some reason, I really liked this blue speckled pattern. And I thought it went nicely with that other leaf type of pattern. And I was also drawn to this kind of geometric shape, this subtle line box pattern.
Oh my gosh, my brain is fried. I can make a lot of decisions when it comes to fabric pretty quickly, especially when it comes to making clothes. But for some reason, tablecloths, table mats, like housewares, oh my gosh, it like fries my brain and I can't make decisions. And then I had to like figure out the math while I was there to figure out how many yards I would need that I could fit on the width of the fabric. So I'm gonna head home. I'll show you what I got.
So for these placemats, they will be 19 by 14 inches. That's including an inch seam allowance for a ½ inch on each side. And my table runner is going to be 30 inches by 14 inches. I'm going to need 6 placemats and 1 table runner. I was so scared to run out of fabric that I got 2.5 yards of each. And that was way too much fabric, but my motto is I'd rather have too much fabric than too little.
Okay, we're back. Let me show you what I got from Joann's. So the first fabric that I picked up This is just a light blue. It has this geometric pattern on it. I thought it'd be nice that it wasn't too busy, and the light blue would look nice against the dark wood of my table. So we have this one. And then we had this light, it's kind of a greenish gray color. And I was going back and forth about the that green plant design, and it reminded me of something, and I sent the picture to Darren to get his opinion. He agreed. And while that didn't really bother me, he was like, I just don't like this pattern. And then I was like, well, I was thinking about this one. And he was like, yes, I like this one much better. So this is them together. You won't see them together because they're going to be reversible. So you see one side or the other side. Well, I guess I like to have the table runner be the opposite. So if the table runner is this, I'll have the placemats this pattern, and vice versa. So I wanted to get something that went nicely together. And then I also picked up this cotton batting. So it's pretty thin. I wanted mostly cotton, so when I wash my placemats, everything's cotton, so it'll shrink kind of it'll act the same way. I actually already washed and dried the batting and my fabric, so it's all ready to go. I always like to wash my fabric, wash and dry it like as soon as I get home. So when I'm ready to start my projects, my fabric is ready for me. And this is the twin size batting. I didn't know how much to get. My brain was hurting from all the numbers and the math, so I just went with as much as I thought was going to be enough. And it's always nice to have leftovers to do other projects with. So let's start cutting out these placemats.
It took me a while to figure out the best way to tackle cutting all of this fabric. At first I did it one by one, but I know doubling the fabric makes it easier to cut. It makes things more symmetrical, but it was just so much fabric to work with at first that it took me a little bit in cutting and brainstorming to figure out the best way to tackle this. For those of you that are seasoned sewers, I'm sure it's painful for you to watch this. But my mat and my ruler with my rotary cutter is definitely helpful with these, symmetrical shapes that I've been doing lately. And once I got onto the blue fabric, I just folded it, cut the length that I needed, and then cut the 2 placemats out of that width. And here's me cutting the batting. I'll just show you a little bit of this. This was difficult as well. But I just did a single layer because it was so thick. Yeah, just one layer.
Okay, everything is cut out. 6 of each for the placemats, and then 1 30 inches long for my table runner. So now it's time to start making some sandwiches.
So for this part, I took the batting piece, layered it with the right side facing up of the blue fabric, and the right side facing down of the green fabric. I ended up switching this later because the blue fabric had more straight horizontal and vertical lines that I thought would help when I was sewing.
Okay, so to sew this little sandwich together of the 3 layers, I'm going to be using a walking foot. So the reason I'm going to use a walking foot is because this works to move the fabric. It has little feed dogs on here. So you have this feed dogs on your machine and feed dogs on here. So it moves the fabric together. So it will move the top fabric with the bottom fabric so it makes it all even. Because sometimes if you have too many layers, the bottom fabric moves and the top fabric gets held back a little bit by the foot. So you end up with uneven layers. So even though my layers are not even, I don't know, I need help cutting symmetrical, even rectangles. I don't know. It's something I'm working on. But I want to try to keep the pieces together and not lose and not have them shift too much as I sew. So I'm gonna put this on and start sewing my placemats.
No.
Later, I had to take a break because we had to celebrate Marco's 14th birthday. So happy birthday to Marco.
Yeah, but let me see. I know. Just for a minute.
Looking great for 14. And I finished sewing the rest of the placemats and the table runner, leaving a little space so I can flip it out. I'm going to use my serger and just finish up the edges because I want them to be together so when I flip them inside out, the edges are nice and secure. They're not going to come apart and rip and separate. And then we can work to close. Yeah, I'm excited to start doing the stitching to decorate them. So let me clean up the edges and then we can get to stitching.
Yeah.
So before I started serging, I actually clipped the corners of each side because when I turn them inside out, I don't want bulky rounded corners. Like I want them pretty sharp. So I just cut a diagonal across the corner, serged to the end, and just left a little tail. So once it's inside out, you won't see it and it won't bulk up those corners. So to turn these inside out, I kind of made a little pincher moment with my thumb and pointer finger, grabbed the inside, pulled through, and it took me a little bit. It definitely got easier the more placemats that I did. It was also very satisfying when you pulled that final piece through. And I also found it easier to grab the corners and pull those through as well as the sides. So you're kind of pulling that whole end all the way through. Next, I grabbed the biggest knitting needle that I could find, and I'm going in and I'm just poking through the corners to make them as sharp as I can, because I don't want those rounded corners. Ta-da! Now that they're all flipped inside out or right side up, I want to give each mat and the table runner a good press to make sure everything is flat and the edges are crisp.
Yeah. No.
Once all the placemats were ironed, I brought it over to my sewing machine and I top stitched to close that hole used to turn them inside out. It's pretty small, it's really close to the edge, so you can't really see it Now for the top stitching. So for the first border stitch, I am going around 1/2 inch around the entire edge, which is the measurement when I put my foot up against the edge of the placemat. So I use that as my guide to sew 1/2 inch around the entire placemat and table runner.
No. No.
Next, I sewed a border line an inch away from that first top stitching mark, and that just happened to line up with the edge of my sewing plate on my sewing machine, so I used that as a guide to stitch around my placemats and my table runner. So for my placemats, I know that I wanted to stitch a 4-quadrant design in the middle. So I'm finding the middle of my placemat and making a line with some chalk. And I like using the chalk because as I sew on the line, the chalk tends to bounce off the fabric and disappear pretty quickly. So I find the middle of the placemat, I draw my line, and then I find the middle in between the border and that middle line that I just drew, and I make those lines to make 3 lines of top stitching in the middle, which makes those 4 quadrants. And my placemats are done. On to the table runner. Now for the table runner, I'm going to make top stitching that is 1/2 inch. So I'm going to have these beautiful lines going down the middle. So again, I'm using the edge of my presser foot as a guide and just going down line by line until I get to the end. It took a long time, but the end, it was so worth it because I love the finished look.
I finished doing all the stitches on the table runner last night, and here they are. I'm really happy with how they turned out. They definitely aren't perfect. Some of them are a little wavy, have have a little curve to it, not exactly straight, but I'm happy with them. And you know, they'll be covered with plates and dishes and silverware, and I really like them. Using the walking foot really helped because on the first ones that I did, the first set, I didn't use a walking foot, and when I got to the end, the fabric would bunch because it was dragging everything down. So, and I kind of had to like stitch over this lump at the bottom. So the walking foot was like key to making these as flat as they are. So highly recommend a walking foot if you're going to be doing anything with multiple layers of fabric. And I love the color combination together, how it's like a little different vibes. I'm not sure which combination I like better, so let me know down in the comments which combination you like better. I love the table runner with this blue geometric shape, and it goes very nicely with our butter bell. But that's the video. So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you next time. Bye.